Welcome to the next edition of the Rare Business Podcast. With me today I have Gary Burnison, who is the CEO of Korn, Ferry International. First of all, can you tell me, give me a quick snapshot of you and how you came to be the CEO of Korn, Ferry International, and how you then came to write the book?
I was a partner at KPMG Marek. I was in investment banking. I guess I'm a recovering investment banker. And then I made an investment in this company about 11 years ago, and a personal investment. And one thing led to another, and I reached out to him and then started actually as the CFO. And now this is my fifth year as CEO.
Excellent. And this is the now you just published the 12 Absolutes of Leadership, but you published a book before, is that right?
Yeah, that was a New York Times bestseller. That was No Fear of Failure.
No Fear of Failure. So,
which means I sold 3 copies.
To the most important people.
What a horrific business. Yeah, I mean, it's terrible.
And
yeah, that's right.
And so the 12 Absolutes of Leadership, tell us a bit about it. You know, where does it come from?
Well, I think it comes from it's like in anything in life. I mean, the most obvious, the things that are very easy to intellectualize are actually incredibly hard to pull off.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership. Obviously, there's a part about strategy and decision making and courage and all those things. But it's some of the most basic that are actually the hardest. And that was kind of the genesis for the book, was to go back kind of to basics. And some things like that sound really simple, but ultimately, what do you have to do? You have to make others believe.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you have to do. And if you just try something every day that for every interaction that you have with an employee, that they need to feel better after that interaction than before,
mm-hmm.
no matter what the topic is.
Right.
It could be the person has cancer. It could be you're firing the person. It could be they just had a baby. It could be that they just had incredible results.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, I hold myself to that, and you obviously can't do it. But something like that, if you try that,
mm-hmm.
Every day, you'll find that becomes incredibly taxing.
Mm-hmm.
But really, that's what you have to do. I mean, the biggest risk as a leader is that you're going up the mountain and you look back and nobody's there.
Sure.
But you have to make others believe, and you have to create this emotional connection.
Yes.
With people.
Yes.
Right? And so, like what you said in the business that you're in, money is important, but it's actually never number one when you look at any kind of engagement survey.
Mm.
I mean, everybody wants to make more money, right?
Yeah, but it's like a hygiene factor, right?
Yeah, and everybody believes they're underpaid.
Yes.
Right? But that's kind of, pay it obviously has to be competitive.
Yes.
It's kind of jacks for openers. I mean, it's the basic. But actually, what's more important when it comes to pay is, first of all, the why.
Yeah.
What are you trying to encourage? But even more important than that is whether it's equitable within the organization.
Yes.
But more than the pay, people across cultures, what I've found is, people want to be developed. They want to be stimulated. They want to grow, and they want to know that what they do makes a difference in the life of somebody else, that it's important to somebody else, and that they're contributing to something.
Yeah.
It's bigger than themselves. And that's really how you create a great team. That's how you create engagement.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's...
And as a leader, that's what you really try to spend your time doing. And what I found is, no matter the industry or size of the company, most leaders, most CEOs spend their time around the basics. How do I get these people to work together?
Yeah.
Why can't they communicate? How come they're not moving in the same direction? How do I align them to the strategy of the company?
Mm-hmm. You talked about this, sort of the 12 absolutes, and what's interesting, that there's a diagram in the book which is the sort of the pyramid. There's all sorts of different sort of layers, and people is right at the heart of the at the diagram. I mean, are the levels which are reward and celebrate, empower and inspire, monitor and measure, people, strategy, purpose, and all the things that surround it. But are those hierarchical, or is it just that people is at the heart of everything, or is that just a coincidence?
No, it's not a coincidence. That's absolutely true. And as a CEO, there's kind of what you do, and then there's how you do it.
Yeah.
And the what revolves around setting a purpose and laying out a strategy.
Uh-huh.
And rewarding and celebrating and empowering and inspiring. But the heart of the what you do is the people. And then the question is, okay, how do you do those things? And so, as I think about leadership, I kind of think about what you've got to do and how you do it. And the how you do it is something that is going on all the time. And that you have to anticipate. That is, you've got to look around the corner or two corners, right, as the leader. I mean, you absolutely, strategy is about making bets, and that's something it really comes down to looking, several quarters, ahead, and then it's about kind of navigating, which is really decision making every day. I mean, strategy is not once a year, and so this concept of navigating is that you're actually making decisions every day, and you have to make sure that those decisions that you're making don't become de facto strategy. I mean, that they have to be purposeful.
Yes.
So there's an element of what you do and how you do it, and people is absolutely at the center of it.
Excellent.
Regardless of industry, that it's less about the product made or the technology developed, and much more about the people.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I say to people, a computer doesn't buy anything. A computer, it's at the end of every process or every system, there's a person. Whether that person is an employee or that person is a customer, it's people, and it's just we create the things around us, and therefore we have to understand that we are at the heart of everything that gets done. In our
Absolutely.
in our lives, and lest we forget that.
And look, I mean, people haven't been disintermediated.
Well, absolutely. There was a IBM study that was done. There's the global CEO study, I think, that gets done every couple of years. And back in, I think it was late 2010, it got released. And one of the biggest issues that CEOs were articulating around the things that would help their businesses lead their sectors, their markets in the coming 5-10 years was building better relationships with their customers. Now, I agree with that, because I think the environment that we are in is changing. But then I also believe that there's a clear link between customer engagement and the level of employee engagement, and therefore employee engagement is fast rising up the agenda. Would you agree with that?
Well, it's let me backtrack a little bit. I think that there's this kind of corporate pyramid, right?
Yeah.
And as you move up the corporate pyramid, you number one, you have to make sure that your view doesn't become narrower, which it can easily become narrower, because once you reach the top of that pyramid in any kind of organization, or non-for-profit doesn't make a difference, but particularly as a CEO, what you find is that you never know what it's really like until you actually get there, and people don't treat you as a person anymore.
Right.
That you're a CEO and you represent it. They look at you as a function rather than a person. and they will not speak their mind at all.
Right.
But what happens is you get into this thing, and it can become very isolating, for sure. And what happens, though, is there's another pyramid that inverts itself on you. And that pyramid is full of all sorts of things, whether it's could be unions, could be TV, could be shareholders, could be boards of directors. There's lots of distractions. And at the intersection of the tips of those two pyramids is the leader.
Right.
What I found is that you really have to focus on just two things, and that is your customers and your people.
Yep.
And that performance will be the ultimate equalizer. And you have to be quite resolute as a leader and just absolutely focused on those two things. And so I would say that they are, equally important, that you have to make sure that you have this outside-in perspective, which is the customer view, but also the inside-out, which is the view around employees.
Which means
because what you're really trying to do is to create this level of engagement. You want people to wake up at 4:30 without the alarm clock. You want people to make that extra call. You want that person on the sales floor who sees the customer who looks lost. You want them to go over and ask a question. You want to do the same thing, on the phone, right? That's what you're trying to do, is to create that engagement.
Sure. I mean, so they're not distinct things. They are linked. They're
absolutely,
not
totally linked. Because what you've got to do is, as a leader, you've got to make sure that customer-facing strategy, that strategy of the organization, is linked in to the people, right? That the people are actually executing on that.
Yeah.
So that they're one and the same.
And so I guess a role, a growing role for the CEO is to make sure that the different elements of the organization that they're leading actually work more effectively together. So marketing with HR and operations and finance and everybody that works together. So it's because that's the way that you make those links, I guess.
That's absolutely correct. And the bigger the organization, the more multicultural it is, the harder that actually is to do.
Absolutely.
And right, and that's why, I there's so many different leadership books, but I actually think that you've really got to go back to the basics.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the genesis of this thing was, right?
Yeah. It's back to first principles.
That's right. That's exactly right.
But I guess what's interesting as well is, I'd like to get your view on this, but is leadership restricted to management supervisory positions only, do you think?
No, I mean, there's, I spent time, we're very fortunate in the business that we're in, that we get to, as an organization, we get to see the kind of the outliers of achievement across the world. And, I had the fortune one time spending several hours with President Fox, ex-President Fox of Mexico. And his view is that there's a leader within everybody.
Yeah.
And that you have to, that you have to try to draw that out. I don't, whether you believe of whether you're, whether it's born or bred, it's probably, a combination. I mean, certainly.
Yes.
But in terms of, again, how people relate to one another, how they work together as a team, I mean, some of these same principles apply.
Absolutely. So it could be more that it could be a model for culture, as it were.
Be a model for culture, and that's harder to do now. I mean, it's whenever you step onto a elevator, you go in the tube, you get on an airplane. I mean, everybody's staring at their hand.
Yes.
Everybody's obsessed with these gadgets.
Yeah.
That actually becomes, kind of the old school approach becomes a little harder to do. The way you connect Today's obviously different,
It-
right? But ultimately, leading an organization, people have to be able to look in your eyes and see your soul, right? That you have to be authentic.
yes. Do you think when you talk about authenticity, and that I think that's a really interesting sort of point, and some people there's I think just as many sort of leadership books or books written on authenticity as there has been written on leadership. And I think, don't you think that authenticity is just more about being yourself and being
Absolutely.
honest and open
Absolutely.
and straightforward?
No doubt. No doubt. I mean, there's this fine line because, people are actually looking to the leader not for friendship.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for leadership.
Yes.
So there is, there is a bit of a, you've got to kind of walk that balance.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you need to be yourself, right? I mean, you what I do is I try to separate what I do from who I am.
Right.
And I don't take it too seriously in terms of, what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to absolutely be grounded, and be yourself, as you say.
Right. Excellent. I mean, I'm just keeping an eye on time, Gary, and if I was to say to you, in your experience, if there's people that are reading this, the write up of this interview or whatever, and they were saying that's great, that all makes complete sense to me. Now I've just been promoted to a new position, leadership position. Where do I start? What's the say top 3 things that I should be focusing on to get me started on this road? What would you say to them?
Well, I think that you've got to start with the destination.
Okay.
Where you're trying. What is it that you're trying to do?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to achieve? Where is this journey headed? That's number one. And with that, try to link in the common purpose. It's more than it's more than where you're going to be, but why. It's more than just what, it's why.
Yeah.
And which links into engagement.
Yes.
And so what I mean by that is that every business is they're in business to make money, right? I mean, a church has to have more donations than they do expense. So any organization needs to break even or do better.
Yes.
And so I believe that the why of a business unit, whatever that is, it's more than just making money. So I think as you think about the destination and where you're trying to take the organization, to link that to the why.
Right.
Because I think that's what gets people turned on and excited.
Well, that's where you engage the emotional part of the
That's
nature.
exactly right. That's it. So I think that is clearly number one. Is to be focused on that horizon. Make sure that you set that horizon.
Mm-hmm.
Then the second thing is to never lose. You have to meet people where they are. So when you take something on, people don't change unless there's a reason to change.
Right.
And you can't move the organization faster than the culture will absorb. So it's incredibly important that as much as you want to create dissatisfaction with today,
Yeah.
or you want to talk about change, you have to meet people where they are. And then over time, move them in this very purposeful journey.
Yes.
So it's great to be a change agent, and it's great to talk about change, and it's great to create dissatisfaction with today and create the romance of tomorrow, right? That's all good.
Yeah.
But you have to meet people where they are. You have to move that over time. Then probably the third thing is actually what we touched on, that I think that authenticity trumps charisma any day.
Right.
Every day. And so you have to make this emotional connection all the time. Throughout the organization, one-on-one, So I'd say it's really those. I think those three things are incredibly important, kind of in that order.
I think that's great, Gary. And the with all these interviews, I always finish with the one question, and that question is: is there anything that you would like to shamelessly plug?
Shamelessly plug?
Yeah.
No.
no. There's not. You don't want to say buy my book.
No, I mean I think with this, it's just what I've found, particularly my background. Right, my background was I was raised in the middle of the United States in a very small town.
Yeah.
8,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I'm in this kind of global organization. We're in 40 countries around the world. But what I found is that I revert back to the most basic, and that suits it suits me very well across cultures, because I think that works, whether it's in Russia or whether it's in the UK, and there's everybody kind of wants to rush into leadership.
Yes.
There's this story of this crowd that's outside City Hall, and there's this mayor, and he sees the crowd marching and shouting slogans, and the mayor says to his aide, wow, people are really for change, and that's exciting, and the aide says, well, who are they, and what do they want, and where are they going, and the leader says, well, I don't know, but I better get out there and lead them. And there's just kind of rush to leadership, and I actually think you've got to go back to the basics.
Yeah.
About this kind of emotional connection that you've got to create with people.
Excellent, Gary. I know that you have to rush off, but thank you for your time and your insights.
No, thank you. Okay, all right, Adrian.
Thank you very much, Gary.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.